My name is Nahal Yousefian, and I take care of what we formerly called the HR department, and now it's called the People Experience Department at MEC, Mountain Equipment Co-op. I think to become more innovative and competitive, organizations need to remove barriers, what I often refer to as noise. We need to remove that noise for staff. In order for you to think innovatively, you need to be able to feel like you're creating value at work. And so one of the key areas that I think HR as a function in its new role needs to tackle is how to make work and the flow of work more intuitive so that it creates less noise for staff and they have time to feel inspired by creative new ideas to drive change within the organization. So the simplest terms, change management needs to become more intuitive so that work is more value add, and that will in and of itself unlock potential. I think the key here is around the two-way conversations with staff. So one of the biggest misnomers is that executives or leadership believe that risk management is something that they're really privy to. And in actuality, the best people to inform the amount of risk that's happening or may happen as a result of a particular idea getting launched are the end users. So really to be able to mitigate risk, you need to engage staff on a organization-wide level. Ask them what they think, and really through that you'll be able to determine where some of the risks, barriers, gaps, and opportunities are before you even press play on any of your ideas. One of my colleagues at work described strategy or defined strategy for me perfectly a few months ago. He basically said strategy is change. I think we've overcomplicated what that word actually means. So if strategy means change, so you're moving from an as-is state to a to-be state, then change management, the role of HR, leadership and development really is all about how do you get the organization to shift mindset or perspective on a particular strategy or change program. So for me, once I got a much more sort of clear definition in my head around strategy, it became really easy to then build plans around helping staff and leaders get aligned and move in the general direction of where we need to go. But strategy is change. It's as simple as that. The future of HR basically is organizational design and capability. Simplest terms, architects and shrinks is how I summarize it. And we need to let go of the traditional portfolio that HR has been using as a means of finding value for themselves in the workplace and moving towards architects and shrinks. And what that means is the way that the organization is structured, not just through the organizational structure charts, but how you hold meetings, when and where decisions are being made, how the flow of communication and data is being captured, that all needs to be directly linked to the behavior that you want to see come out. So the values is the output, the behavior is an output, and organizational design or architecture is the input. And we haven't spent enough of our time in HR focused on those two areas. We've been too busy inserting ourselves in the relationship between managers and staff around the staff life cycle, when in actuality the sort of gaping hole within organizations in order to become more responsive to the needs of the marketplace has been around architecture and psychology. The psychology piece is simply linked to the amount of change that is happening and the coping mechanisms that staff need to develop in order to be able to respond to change. As consumers, change for them has been very easy, touch of a button, intuitive. But when they come into the workplace, change has been counterintuitive. So it's our job to try to figure out how to help staff manage change effectively in the workplace, but then also to think about the architecture of the workplace in that light, not just the physical space, but how every sort of decision is made needs to also fall within that scope for HR professionals. Corporate learning's future, I think it is change management. I think we've mistakenly separated the two. I used to teach 5-year-olds before I got into HR. A lot of people think it's a transferable skill, just bigger 5-year-olds. But for the most part, change is learning. And even when you talk about the emotional cycle of change and that pit of despair is also what often is referred to as the learning curve. You're coming out of your comfort zone. So I think, if anything, we need to stop thinking of them as two separate things. And I think once we identify that when you learn something, you've changed your mindset or you've changed your approach, where normally you would have been in a different sort of area, doing something different, learned something, and now you're doing it different, looking at things differently. You have inadvertently changed. So just simply shifting that definition, I think, will start to empower L&D departments across organizations to, again, provide life skills for staff and leaders in order to be able to cope with the sheer amount of change that they're getting hit with.